It is Midweek Extra in association with Green King Sport. Thanks for joining us, whatever date it is. The 27th of December, there we go. I've got Rob Gutmann, I've got Neil Atkinson, and I've got Beth Lindop, and we're going to discuss last night's 3-1 victory. We'll probably do a little bit on other games, matters arising as well. Gutmann's been doing maths in the build-up to this, and he's ready to hit you with any permutations that you want, fog or otherwise. And then obviously we'll be looking ahead to Liverpool's huge game against West Ham in a couple of days' time. But they won, Beth, and that is always nice. Not everyone managed it yesterday, but Liverpool did. We were last up, best dressed, and through the fog, I think we played pretty well.
Yeah, it was one of those days where you've just got to capitalise, haven't you? And when you are the last fixture of the day, you do then start to fear, oh gosh, like are we gonna make good on this and get the 3 points? And especially with the weather, and obviously Liverpool fall behind early on, and you do start to think. I think it was 3 times they hit the woodwork, was it? And after that, you do start to think, could it not be Liverpool's day? But I don't think really there was ever a feeling that Liverpool weren't going to go on and win the game. I think that is the beauty of them this season under Slot, is that you always feel like they'll find a way. I think the opposition always feel like they'll find a way, the players as well. I think it was Mo Salah who said to the TV after the game that it feels different this season. And I definitely do feel that. I think there is a similar, it's impossible not to draw parallels to the 2019-20 season when Liverpool last won the title, and there was a feeling about that squad, almost sort of an air of inevitability about them. And I think this squad have a very similar thing. Thought first half it was bit lacklustre. I actually thought Liverpool were unlucky to go behind, really. They obviously dominated the first sort of 5 minutes or so, and then Leicester score with the first attack. And it does feel like there's been a lot of that lately. It feels like, Liverpool maybe need 5 or 6 attacks to get a goal, whereas it feels like the opposition at the minute, everything they hit seems to be going in. But sometimes that just happens, and when it does, you have to be able to bounce back. And I think it was crucial getting level before half time. Great goal, obviously, by Cody Gakpo. And then second half, Liverpool was so dominant, weren't they? And could and possibly should have been a few more out in front. So, on the whole, very professional performance and another win.
Beth mentioned there the idea of it feeling different this season, Neil, and well, it's Beth's point almost Salas. Let's say it's combined. The two great brains of Merseyside football about it feeling different, and it does. And I think we're very low on drama at the moment, and even when there's an early goal and people go, oh, here's going to be drama, we just sort of shut it down. And last season there was drama all over the place, but this year no one's been kidnapped. There's been no, we're low on classics. The Adamelia Classic ometer is fairly sort of low, and we're just ticking on nicely. Even in a game which felt sort of set up for a bit of drama. There was fog. There's an early goal. There's the hang on. We just lash narrative out and go, no. The story is that Liverpool just win.
I think a big part of that though is what's happening elsewhere. It's the fact that everyone else feels caught up in classics and everyone else is having a bit of drama and no one else feels quite right. It takes the pressure off. It's worth saying the corresponding fixture to this last year, literally at this time of year, was Burnley away, and they win 2-0. And there's a little bit around the disallowed goal, and they come under some pressure second half, but they do manage to do the business. And I do think it does feel different. I do think it does feel closer to 2019, the whole calendar year, really, not just 1920, but the whole calendar year. But then that might have been the journey this team, this set of players went on anyway. A lot of them are another year older. But I just think in general, what is different, what the big similarity to 2019-20 is, within reason, it feels like what all the sides are doing is either sort of irrelevant or, in the instance of yesterday, it gives you the boost. All the players will have known Chelsea dropped points. I've not found that out in a trip, which warming up before the match, and there's a bit of a buzz going around. But they'll literally, they're
probably in this.
Yeah, they may have watched it together. Some of them, and they've seen that happen, and it's that sort of feeling of, oh, there's less pressure again, and then there's less pressure again, and they've dropped points, and there's less pressure again. And I think that all of that sort of helps. I thought that one of the most interesting things, and one of the things that felt most like 1920 last season, wasn't so much the idea of the play itself, but it was the fact that the crowd was actually just really calm first half. Really, really calm. I remember there was a game against Leicester in 2018-19 when there was mad weather. And everyone went mad. Everyone went mad during that game.
James Milner trying to calm people down.
The Harry Maguire goal.
Yeah. And
cost us the league.
Finishes one. Well, that's the theory of it. I mean, the other games then followed where Liverpool didn't win as well. But in everyone's minds, because of everything that was on the line, everyone lost their minds. And yesterday, when it went 1-0, there was some quite good chancing to get behind them, make sure it was clear. And then, and I mean this in a good way, it was actually quite quiet. I liked it was quite quiet in that what it wasn't was loads of people going, just get it forward and sort it out, will you? Instead, there was a lot of, no, they're going to play and it's going to come and the chances will come and it'll go from there. Now, listen, that might have been different if it got to 65 or 70 and it was still 1-0 or even 1-1 to Leicester. But I think there was just a general sense of these will sort this. And I think that that's the most important thing. And if you go back to 2019, which was different post that Leicester game, there was just a lot of vibe of these will sort this and it'll be all right. And then you go through the 1920 season and there's a lot of vibe of, no, they're going to sort this out. This is all going to be okay. So I think it is, I think it is there. But I think it's worth sort of saying we're not that far away from being able to actually pair the last two seasons, albeit with a different manager, and say it's a really strong body of work. They break 80 last season and go deep. They win one cup and they go deep in the other two. This season so far, they're going deep in, well, definitely in two. They're making the last 16 of the Champions League, probably finishing top of that sector. And they look like they're on course to take 82 points and turn it into current projection at, say, 93, but let's just say 90. And so you end up in the situation going, you could end up going, tell you what, this Liverpool squad, not least because there's not been that many changes as well in personnel, they put two really good campaigns together back to back. And then within it, you get to see the difference of the manager, you get to see the shift in the football. And I think now what you have really got to see is both footballers, crowd, manager, there is a shift in patience. The one thing I will say, though, is it's fascinating to me, is the shift in crosses. I think it was just really interesting. That first half, they kept crossing and they got in at half time and they stopped crossing. And first half, that was the only thing that was doing my head in was stop whipping this in from this angle because that's all Yannick Vestergaard wants you to do. And maybe that spoke of a teeny bit of not being sure or a teeny bit of desperation's the wrong word, but sort of just not quite doing the right thing. But the rest of it, they look the part, they feel the part, and the table suggests they are absolutely the part.
Yeah, there was a calmness, I thought. Like Neil, I was getting frustrated with some of our attacking play, in the first half, but you felt that...
I wasn't calm.
Well, you're not. Go on, talk me through it.
I'm not like that. In fact, Neil said, well, the fella going, just get it forward, will you? I was the fella saying, 2 passes before the ball landed at Cody Gakpo's feet, I was screaming at him and going, it's only about 20 seconds to go. You don't fanny around with it, get it forward. Oh, he's got to put it in the back of the net. So I thought, my irrational self was not calm. But I did think, even as we approached half-time, and I didn't see a scoring in the last, in the run-up to half-time, I didn't think we were going to get a breakthrough equaliser. I still at no stage thought we can't score 4 in the second half here. I thought we're much better than them, and I do know what you mean about calmness. There's a maturity in the team. I take Neil's point about a body of work over 2 seasons. But it's an evolutionary body of work very much. I know that's an obvious thing to say, but I kept thinking about the midfield, which has become sort of the first choice, which is, Soboslai, McAllister and Gravenberch. None of them were at Liverpool Football Club 18 months ago. And you can sort of throw Curtis Jones and Elliott into that mix. This is what's the average age of the 5 lads I've just mentioned? I think it's under 25, right?
Yeah, I'd say about 23.
So this is a potential title-winning midfield pool. 5, the engine room of a title win, potentially. And the average age is, what you say, 23. I think that's a fair estimate there. It's very, very young, and it's normal that it should be going on a journey. And in a way, I think they embody the journey that this Liverpool has gone on from Klopp's rebuild at the beginning of last season through to Slot's taking us on another level. And for the midfield to find the way to be calm and be methodical, I think it does speak to maturity beyond their years. I mean, what are they going to look like in 3 or 4 years, those group of lads, if we can keep them together? Because, cliche, but central midfielders get better as they get older. Certainly they peak around 28, 29, not at 22, 23. So it is interesting. And I'm just finally on Neil's point about the crossing. I think there's 2 types of crossing going on that half. One I like, one I didn't like. The ones from Trent, on Trent's side, it's not that it's Trent's fault. Leicester were allowing, so we allowed Leicester to get set before the crosses really. Vestergaard could deal them. I like Cody Gakpo's crossing to the back post though. That is his secret weapon as much as bending one in, is that dink. It's a De Bruyne-like ball actually he's got on him, and it did nearly get us in before they scored actually, I think, to
the early one,
Salah / Jones had. I think that's a weapon we can use all season long, quite frankly. But I know what Neil means. You can't just be crossing it. Sometimes you just have to take them apart, as we did in the second half.
I want to talk a little bit about the midfield. Rob just raised a point there about this idea of their age and how they could potentially grow together, which is quite exciting. Alexis McAllister turned 26 the other day, I do believe, and it always he's the one who always we're always so surprised how young he is, even though you've been told 50 times, his age, and it's online, you can look it up whenever you want. But like when he turned 26 the other day, I did just sort of laugh because Rob talks there about players getting better and certain players getting better, and there's no reason why he won't get better and better. The kind of players who don't are ones who rely on maybe speed and explosiveness, and almost sometimes they're a bit like a lad in the yard, and then it gets coached out of them effectively, and then a couple of injuries do for them as well. But for someone like McAllister, who so much about his game is intelligence, so much about his game is doing the right thing. He's not going to get less intelligent, not till you get to my age, and then it starts to go a little bit. But something to look forward to for you, Beth. But
Jesus.
But for people in the mid-20s like you and Alexis, you know what I mean? Like the next few years for both of you can only be really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I hope so. Anyway. But yeah, I think the beauty of
looking
Alexis
to peak at 28, 29 as well.
Just watch
it. The beauty of Alexis McAllister is how many times this season has he been sort of singled out as the player of the match? Not actually very often, but then how many times has he delivered below a 7 out of 8, 7 out of 10, 7, 8 out of 10? And I think that's the thing. Very quickly, Liverpool fans have grown accustomed to him just consistently being brilliant. And I think for that reason, he maybe doesn't get the plaudits all the time that he deserves. But as you say, he's so intelligent. And I think, if you ask a lot of Liverpool fans who the favourite player was under Jurgen Klopp, it would be probably Roberto Firmino. And a large part of that is the intelligence that he had and his ability to see things that other people couldn't. And I think Alexis McAllister obviously playing in a completely different position, but he has that football brain, like you say, and I love watching him, and his ability to just dictate play and calm things down, and he's such a good signing. And I think I saw something the other day, and Jörg Schmadtke got a little bit of stick during his brief period as interim sporting director, but you look at the players he brought in: Alexis McAllister, Dominic Szoboszlai.
He's a great advert for working from home.
Yeah.
/ Ibiza.
Ryan Gravenberch.
I mean,
it's a hell of a body of work now.
When you look back, you think, I can't think of a better transfer window than that, really.
Sod all the boffins and the committees. Just get Big Jörg and his phone back in Marbella.
He'd get those contracts sorted out in no time. But yeah, you look at those 4 players, and I think you look back at, at the time last summer, there was a lot that was overshadowed by the Caicedo stuff not going through it, and Endo and Gravenberch almost being seen as a little bit of a consolation prize. And you look back now and you think, gosh, those 4 players, all in their own different ways and to varying degrees, but have had such an impact on this Liverpool team. And Alexis McAllister, absolutely, I think in 5-10 years' time, we could be looking back and thinking 35 million for a player of his calibre is absurd, really.
Yeah, he's the kind of player who I bet his teammates love him.
Yeah,
and I always feel like if you're going to be a title-winning team or a team who's going to do everything, I think you want to look around the dressing room or look around the pitch and go, yeah, he's got that bit sorted. So say you're Virgil van Dijk, he's won everything with Mo. And, he'll be looking at Mo and thinking, if we get a chance, he'll sort of take it. And he's looking around, and he loves his centre-half partners, all of them. Whoever you put next to him, he just fucking loves, which is one of the best things about him. But, generally that's a back four that have won the title, and they're, obviously all adore the keeper, not least the manager, and why not? And then you just feel like Alexis is, for someone like Virgil, nearly someone who he's looking at and thinking, yeah, he'll just sort that, and obviously like Gravenberch's been playing so well and things like that. And I'm not saying there's not other midfielders that will be admired, but I think for someone like McAllister, the guys like Virgil will look at him and go, he'll take care. He'll take care of what he needs to.
I think I had a little look post-match, and he receives the ball mostly from Van Dijk over the course of the game. Van Dijk gets it to him 9 times over the course of the whole match. And then in there, the next down the list is Ryan Gravenberch. Then it's very close to that. It's Andy Robertson, then it's Curtis Jones, then it's Mo Salah, then it's Cody Gakpo. And my point here is, that's quite the spread. That's quite the spread of players in different parts of the pitch. You were looking up and finding McAllister and getting McAllister on the ball and saying, right, you're next on this. No one's missing him out. In fact, people are looking for him to bring him in and to get him involved and to keep him involved. And then, it then works the other way. McAllister goes everywhere. When he gets it, it can go to anyone. It can go in any direction at any time. He can play the quick pass. He can hold it for a second. He can look to carry it. And then within all of that, the other brilliant part of it is, and there was 2 or 3 great instances of it yesterday, he doesn't half with his battles.
Yeah.
He just wins his battles there's suddenly 5 minutes where it feels like he's just won 4 tackles, broke through another lad, someone's hanging off the back of him, and you think he's only about 5'7".
He was doing a Mascherano impression for 5 minutes. Yeah. It was incredible. I kept thinking, what the hell?
But there's that period every single game, and then you almost get the impression part of the reason why it stops is the opponents go, it's all right, you've won now.
Yeah.
we just want this to stop doing this to us. And it often tends to happen in the second half. Again, I think he's another player, and I think Liverpool have got a few of them, where I think the part of how the game bends to their will a little bit is I think the stamina of a lot of these players is exceptional. The more I'm looking at Salah, what I think is really interesting is, and I think it's helped by the team structure, I think Salah's able to manage himself through games a little bit. And that's one of the reasons why there's fullbacks who look like they've got the beating of him for pace in the 25th minute. Suddenly he's run away from them in the 65th. Yeah. And part of the reason why is he saved his energy, Salah. And these lads have been going full pelt because they're up against Mo Salah. And now suddenly Mo Salah's going, right, well, now I'm going to show you some afterburners. And I think McAllister's doing the same thing in midfield. There's almost this little bit of, you might be a little bit faster than me now, but you just wait till we get, and I'll be clever, but you just wait till the 55th minute mark, and now you're not quite as sharp as you were, and guess what? I've barely broken a sweat. Yeah. And now this midfield belongs to me. And I thought he was excellent again in there. And I think there was just, and to talk about that, this square that I think the manager's really committed to. I think one of the things I think when you can look at the sort of commonality of team selection, when there's been either big games or a big game on the horizon, with maybe one exception, I think he's loved goalkeeper, whichever of the two it is, but he wants the first choice one, availability, Virgil. And then it's been Gomez or Konate, but it is now solidly Gomez, and it will be Gomez until Konate comes back. There's no messing around there. There's no we're rotating this. That is going to be that player. And then the 2 in front of McAllister and Gravenberch. And it's this idea of these 5, I think, that everything's getting built on. And I think McAllister's such an intrinsic part of that because he manages to glue up so much of that left-hand side. And there's variants there. Will it be Shimikas at left-back? Will it be Diaz or Gakpo in front? Who's going to play centre-forward? But it doesn't matter, because it's McAllister who's the glue. And that's the point of what you're saying about how much his teammates must love playing with him. He makes them all be able to be a little bit better, and that increases as games wear on.
Yeah, he must be such a gift for the manager as well. He was told summer by all of us, really, we need midfielders and stuff like that. And he must have, I can't remember how early or late he got McAllister.
He was the early signing that summer, wasn't he?
No, I mean last summer in terms of...
Gets them quite late, yeah.
International get to the final, do they?
Yeah, they were one of the ones who annoyingly got to the final.
Yeah, I think they win it, actually. So fair play. Argentina win things. Good on them for that. But I think... he wouldn't have got a massive, idea with him in pre-season, but, he'll have watched tapes and things like that. And I think quite quickly he's seen or realised in him that he has got someone who, like Neil says, he can anchor in midfield round. And, it helps Gravenberch so much. I mean, Gravenberch's having a phenomenal season in terms of, individual performances and average rating and stuff like that. Gravenberch's probably higher than McAllister, but he doesn't half help him out in terms of being able to be a footballer in that position.
Yeah, I'm slightly, what's the word? I think most Liverpool fans would say, what out of 10 do you think McAllister is as a Liverpool player? They go, 9.1, 9.5. I'm 9.1, right? Because I think he's brilliant. I don't think he's better. But I think a lot of our fans talk about McAllister, he's the best of our midfielders. I don't think he's the most indispensable. I think that's Ryan Gravenberch. And I actually think in time will come to show that Dominic Szoboszlai, and I know that's a shout, will come to be seen as perhaps even more important than that. Certainly on a level with that. I think he's a phenomenal footballer. He's a very young footballer. God knows what the limit is for him. I think Alexis McAllister is for us like a young James Milner in a sense, and I'm not doing him down by that because he's got more technical ability, but I think he can do his consistency, his reliability, the fact that he can do everything you want him to do is there. He does have weaknesses. He doesn't have weaknesses. He has one weakness. He's not press resistant. He's pressable. We saw he cost us a goal against Spurs last week. It's harsh because Maddison's finish is sublime. And he's fouled, by the way. But he is pressed, and it's not the first time this season. I'd sort of play McAllister, although he's a tiger in the tackle, when he's coming onto the ball, I'd play him higher up the pitch. I think he's a 10. I actually think, funny enough, Beth compared him to Bobby Firmino in terms of being in the fans' hearts. I actually think you could play him as a false 9. I think he's he's a little jack in the box in the box. He pops up. The goal he scores against Spurs, I go, where the fuck is McAllister doing there, heading one in on the edge of the 6-yard box when he pops up against Real Madrid and slots one? I think you can play him as far forward as you like. I do think in a double pivot, he's as good as the guy next to him. He needs a Gravenberch next to him. I don't think although he tackled like Mascherano yesterday, he's not Mascherano. So again, to go back to the first thing we said, he's still young. So he actually can get better. He just doesn't look like he can get better because he looks like a complete footballer of sorts, doesn't he? It's sort of hard to imagine which bit of his game gets better. I don't know because it's all at a very, very high level. So I do think he's brilliant, but I think he's equal amongst equals, quite frankly. And I think that's what's amazing about Liverpool's pool of midfielders. I don't think any one of them at any given moment is any worse or better than the others, particularly. Sometimes you go, well, Gravenberch's in a rich vein of form, sometimes Curtis Jones is, or sometimes Szoboszlai is, and sometimes McAllister takes the attention. And I think Harvey Elliott's knocking on the door going, just wait till I get a chance, I just think we're in a very, very good place with midfielders.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the forwards. I was laughing. I listened to post-match pint. If that's a funny sentence, but I was driving, so I put it on in the background and listened to Neil talk about Salah sort of having a 6 out of 10 game until he very much doesn't, which kind of like made me laugh. Gakpo's explosive. I don't think it's actually the best first half from him, but then it's the best moment of the first half, and I think second half he's great. And then Núñez is a bit of a funny game in that I think if you're someone who doesn't like him, there's plenty to criticise, but I actually think he's a bit unlucky. Like that offside just spiritually isn't for me. It's not what it was brought in for, and I just feel like he's got every right to look across the line there and go, I'm on. And you want him to look across the line, and he just feels like he's onside. But it is, in the very, very strictest sense of the rules, sort of offside. But it's only Darwin Núñez could be offside in that way. And so I feel sort of a little bit sorry for him, and I think he did okay, but I understand other people, won't have that opinion, and that's up to them. But what did you make of them as sort of individually and as a three?
Yeah, I just think as an attacking unit, and not just the three who started yesterday, but Liverpool are so strong. And I know I've seen a few things from rivals saying, what happens when Mo Salah stops scoring. And I think, first of all, you have to say, well, will he stop scoring? Because it's beyond a purple patch now, isn't it? It's half of a season. And, I can't, in terms of his overall game, and this is a big statement because of how phenomenal he was in his first season at the club, but I can't remember seeing Mo Salah look as good as he does right now. I think it's got to a point now with him where, for me, growing up, Steven Gerrard was the absolute ultimate and will always be very much up there. But for me, I've got to say Salah's the best Liverpool player I've seen in my lifetime, just in terms of his consistency, his quality, and just how he always delivers for Liverpool. So, I think this season is definitely almost taking him past Gerrard for me, which seemed inconceivable. But he's just brilliant. And last night, as Neil said, it's he has a relatively quiet game, although saying that he hits the woodwork a couple of times and is a little bit unlucky. But second half, he was just totally irrepressible, wasn't he? And that finish is just absolutely textbook Mo Salah, isn't it? Just out of nowhere, just bends it and just is brilliant. But I think while he's obviously so integral to what Liverpool do. I think Cody Gakpo getting that goal last night moves him on to 10 for the season in all comps. Luis Diaz also has 10. And I'm not sure on the numbers in terms of sort of Arsenal's forwards.
Diaz has 11.
11.
Yeah.
So there's 3 on double figures, which is at this stage of the season is impressive. And I can't, like I say, I'm not too sure on Arsenal's numbers in terms of how many each of their forwards have, but I can't imagine there's 3.
Saka top scorer with 4. I'm joking.
It's 4 in the league. He's got 4 league goals. Yeah.
Rubbish.
So, Liverpool, as much as Salah is so important, are blessed that they have, the body of players that they have, and Diogo Jota has been injured and he's already got a fair few goals under his belt. Did Diaz come on last night? He didn't,
no.
did he? And so they're so fortunate. I think Darwin Núñez, it's almost impressive that he's found a new way to be offside, really, isn't it? But I do feel for him. I think, ultimately, I feel like his future probably isn't at Anfield long term. But sometimes you do have to say he's just an incredibly unlucky footballer. I mean, even that save he forces, he could have done better, sort of not putting it right at the goalkeeper. But you do sort of think, he just needs one of them to go in. And it just seems like all of the time things aren't quite on his side. And I do feel for him. But still last night I thought he caused problems and he was a nuisance. But obviously out of the 3 that started, was sort of the least effective, I guess. But I mean, Cody Gakpo has just been tremendous, hasn't he? I think it's been easy to sort of overlook him this season because of the brilliance of Salah and some of the midfielders behind him. But you look at the teams that he scored against. He scores against Real Madrid. He scores against Manchester City. So he scored some big goals for Liverpool as well. And even last night, as much as it felt like Liverpool would go on and win anyway, getting that goal before half-time, I think, was so important. I think if Leicester had chance to go in and regroup, I'm not saying they would have gone on to win the game, but the second half probably would have been far more difficult for Liverpool than it was. So yeah, I think just as a sort of an attacking unit, Liverpool have the best in England, at least, if not in Europe.
I'm with them where, I think that looking at the raw numbers is good and it's impressive, but I think that the key part of it is that they just consistently create opportunities for each other. And last night they didn't create an absolutely stellar opportunity. I think maybe the Núñez one is the strongest. And
the one where Salah slips him through.
Yeah, and it's been a lovely move building
it's
up to the second
shot.
half.
I watched it back this morning.
Yeah,
it's not an easy chance.
It's an excellent save.
Great thread.
It's a great thread and it's an excellent save. And it's one of those really where on the Núñez being a bit unlucky point, it would be quite nice if one of those just hit the goalkeeper's hand and went in.
Yeah.
As appears to happen for other people on a regular basis. And unfortunately, that's not quite sort of dropping his way from time to time at the moment. But I think the flip side of that is, I think that what they're really good at is creating space for each other. And I think it doesn't really matter who it is who's playing. I think that's been one of the excellent parts. They can create different types of space. Diaz, I think, creates space for people to move into by virtue when he plays through the middle of pulling centre-backs out of position a little bit more. Darwin, I think, creates space for people filling behind him because he pushes centre-backs back. And I think Jota can do a little bit of both, which is possibly why Jota in the long run will end up being the one who starts when he's fit as first choice, and that he can go and live on the shoulder, but he can also decide he's going to go and do 10 minutes as an attacking midfielder. And I think that might well be why, as I say, why he ends up in possession. But it sort of doesn't matter. The Gakpo can frustrate me a little bit at times. Could quite like him to be a little bit more interested in going on the outside. But then he was yesterday. All of a sudden that came, and I think that added to his game as he grew more confident. And then in amongst all of this, Salah's Salah. And part of the reason why this doesn't feel like a purple patch now is I think that Salah is enjoying how all of this works, and every game manages to find a different way he's going to click into it. It's not always the same way. Whereas I think with the others, I would argue the overriding criticism of Darwin is, for instance, he's genuinely quite predictable in a lot of what he does, including a lot of what he does well, but he's genuinely quite predictable in there. But I think that you can possibly lay that at the others as well. I've got a real sense of what Luis Diaz is going to do at any given moment, a real sense of what Gakpo is going to do, a real sense again of what Jota's going to do. Salah's completely unpredictable. There's such variance in what he does at all times. He seems happier than ever for himself to go on the outside, happier than ever to slip someone in with a straightforward pass, happier to play a pass that just splits a defence, happier to carry, happier to shoot. Yeah, it's unbelievable how involved he is, even when he's not particularly involved. Yesterday was just going to look like a bit of a run-of-the-mill performance. And when opposition, supporters might say things like, what does it look like when Salah doesn't score? But it looks like 2-1. Genuinely there yesterday. Yeah. I may still have gone through some other methods, but it genuinely yesterday just sort of looked like 2-1. But then he's there to put the icing on the cake. I think they're attacking in a good way, and I still think it can get better. It feels like the dangerous part, the dangerous thing for everyone else with this Liverpool side at the moment is, I feel as though they can manage games a little bit better. I feel as though they can start a little bit better still. I do think they have hard lines yesterday. I do think that they don't deserve to concede. But then I think that there's another universe where Jones makes it 1-0 after 4 minutes and Leicester are on the end of a torrent until 15, and then we are talking about the goal difference and all that sort of stuff. But there's ways in which I think it can get a little bit better. And I think that West Ham might be in for one on Sunday with a bit of luck in terms of Liverpool starting in a way in which they started at Tottenham, and feeling as though, right, we've got to impose our authority on away games a little bit more. But I think it can improve. I think they can attack better. I think they can score more goals and they can create more opportunities. And at the minute, no one is scoring more goals or creating more opportunities. So if everyone else feels as though they've got a ceiling to move into in terms of our rivals, well, I think we have as well. Yeah. And that is the exciting part.
I think the only thing that stops Liverpool now is their own heads, really, because you've seen at the moments they focus, we blitz teams of the level of Real Madrid, Man City back there in the old Man City, and Tottenham, rump into 5-1 because we just switch on. I think it's when we have to think about it a little bit like it's a formality, like playing Leicester, where you get in your own head a little bit more. And that's where there's a bit of peril, I think. But we're talking about the forwards and talking about Mo Salah. He's hitting a level here. I actually think he's slightly better than people are maybe giving him credit for yesterday. The shot in the first half that hits the bar, the curler. Although you and I, Neil, have sort of, what's the word? Not bickered even, but talked all season long about the nuances of just how faster or slower Mo Salah is compared to peak Mo Salah. Tell you where he's definitely fast, where his speed is definitely not coming back, if you like. His speed in his feet is incredible. And you see that in the fact that he's able to get curlers off again. Now, we haven't seen that really for 2 years before this. He's getting curling shots away. Nearly scores in the first half. The one he scores with is an example of that. He's got several this season which are examples of that. And that's about speed of feet to get in the position to be able to do that and to be able to plant one foot and to be able to find time where there is no time to do that. He's beginning to remind me of, and I apologise for the reference to the olden days, but Dalglish at the same age, 82, 83, wasn't exactly written off, but is expected to have a declining season, and he ends up double Footballer of the Year and running games. But he found a new way of doing it. That was what was amazing about it. He had the coltish Ian Rush ahead of him, so he became the best number 10 British football certainly he had ever seen, and was sublime. And I think Salah's, just through use of his brain, quite frankly, is reinventing himself as not a very different type of forward, but a nuanced different type of Mo Salah, which is quietly proving as effective as the OG Salah from, what was it, 17, 18 that bagged 40-odd goals. And isn't he on that kind of trajectory? Don't attempt anything.
I think he actually might be slightly ahead of
really.
If he carried on, I think he is.
He's got 5 pens, which helps, but still. So they need to keep coming, because I think in the first season no one was giving him any pens, or I don't remember many anyway, apart from. I don't remember many, but yeah, to be rolling back the years at this stage in his career is incredible. As for the other ones, they all just seem to gel. It doesn't really seem to matter. And also, even if you think they're having 6 out of 10 games, like maybe Núñez yesterday, or the odd Gakpo game or the odd Jota game, it doesn't really matter. The whole works. People still are able to make space for each other. I was around people mentioning no names, Steve Graves and my sons, who go, Núñez was stinking the place out. I don't think he was stinking the place out. I thought he was just part of a unit there, really. If that one had gone in, people would have had a different narrative on Núñez yesterday. He wasn't the pick of our forwards, but he was perfectly adequate, as Jota when he came on. And I thought Gakpo was great. Well, obviously man of the match, I think most people agree.
Yeah, I think the idea of not just Núñez, but all of them just contributing to Liverpool performances and good Liverpool performances, I think is right. And what's impressed me, well, lots of things have impressed me about this manager, but one of the things is that whoever he picks up top, they seem pretty fluid, and that wasn't really the case last year. Some there was good individual performances and some good collective performances, but it seemed to sort of struggle a little bit when they chopped and changed. And I think Gakpo up front and being so different to Núñez, I think we struggled with. Whereas this year, he's, whether it's Gakpo or Diaz, wide left, I don't think it doesn't sort of seem to affect us. Yeah, you're going to get different individual performance from them, but it doesn't wildly knock on to sort of everything else. And actually, Gakpo's morphed into a little bit more Diaz like than what we sort of maybe, and maybe both sort of similar the other way as well. I think up top, no matter who you get, it doesn't seem to sort of have a knock on effect on the others. And Salah sort of seems to be the constant, but he seems happy enough playing with anyone, whereas in the past he maybe had the or he likes playing with Bobby or he likes playing with Darwin. It was sort of last year. Now throw him up front with anyone, and he's linking up well with them, and like Neil said before, creating chances for each other. And I think that's been something that has been really impressive this season. A lot of credit, I think, goes to the coach. I don't know whether he's simplified messaging. I don't know if he's simplified the individual roles as part of a collective. I don't know. Or he's made them feel like it's not all on you. If you're Núñez or if you're Salah or whatever, don't go on the pitch and say like everything's on you to sort of score goals. We score as a team, and you need to sort of contribute to doing that. So it doesn't feel like there's particular pressure on any of them sort of individually, and I don't know, it feels to me like they're playing better for it.
Yeah, I think one thing about Slot is he's very much about the team. He gets asked after pretty much every game about individual performances, and he will answer those questions, but more often than not, he will sort of caveat them with saying, but I don't think it's fair to pick out this player without talking about this player. And I think for him, it is very much about the collective. And I think it's key that every single player in this squad really seems to be buying into what he's doing. I think Wataru Endo is the absolute epitome of that. I mean, he's hardly getting a look in, but every time he comes in, he just looks like, first of all, that he knows what he's doing, and also that he has a hunger and an appetite to execute what the manager has asked him to do. And, that says a lot about him as a player and as a person, but I think it also says a lot about Slot and his man management skills, first of all, because there's players who aren't playing every week who, when they are coming in and doing an exceptional job, but also about his communication. And I think, that's one thing from the beginning with Slot that's really impressed me. I think he's an exceptional communicator. I think he comes across so well. I think sort of with every passing week, we're seeing more of his personality. But I think in terms of the way he's communicating with the players, that must be... He's quite blunt, isn't he? It's quite a Dutch trait, which is stereotypical. But I think, he's quite straight to the point when he's talking to the media, and I imagine he's quite like that with the players as well. And maybe for some players they prefer an arm around the shoulder and a bit more of, I guess, the Jurgen approach of maybe being a little bit more almost like a father figure. But I think with Slot, that directness has actually really helped a few of them. And I also think it's no coincidence that two of the most improved players have been Gakpo and Gravenberch. And I just think, as simple as it sounds, him being a Dutchman and being able to communicate to them, directly in the native language has probably helped a little bit as well. But yeah, I just think his directness has probably really helped him sort of convey exactly what he wants the team to do. And I think all of the players seem to be buying into that.
I think it's fascinating sort of looking at drilling into some numbers, really. Liverpool have got 4 of the top 10 pressures, players with pressures, in possession-adjusted pressures. So, i.e., allowing for the idea that, we get more of the ball than everyone else. But then, in the top 10, Solanke is number 1, but then Núñez is number 2. And then Diaz, McAllister and Szoboszlai are all also in the top 10. And in terms of...
For one, you're pressing the ball.
Pressures, possession-adjusted. So, obviously, if for instance, you're a side that only has 20% possession, you're going to be doing more pressures in general if you're going to dominate the ball. But Liverpool have got 4 of the top 10 in there as well.
So Núñez is up there, is he?
Núñez is second.
It's amazing.
But I think with Núñez and Szoboszlai, and this comes back to the Salah point, is that I do feel as though one of the missed sort of things that's going on here is, and I think this is why Salah, for instance, is coming out saying how much he loves playing with Núñez, is that there are other people doing his work. And that's great. And we want to talk about part of why the Salah thing might be able to last is back to what I said before about the fact that you look at 60, it gets to 65 every single game. He looks fresh as a daisy. Especially in comparison to a lot of the players who were around him, especially on the opposition, who've been all absolutely breaking the backs to be able to live with him. And I think that's part of where we are. But I think that a part of that is that Nunez runs for everyone else. When Diaz plays central, he runs for everyone else. Szoboszlai runs for everyone else, the way in which he goes about his business as well. And I think that's really important. And McAllister's just quite consistently at people through games, and that helps. But I think that for me, it's almost the biggest clarity of difference, not just in terms of personnel, but approach from last season, actually, John. I think there's a little thing where last season, if we're all honest about it, especially in the second half of the season, Endo and McAllister did play as a two. So this sort of conversation about, is it markedly different? They just played as pretty much as a two. Yeah, and then another player would sort of go a little bit. And it not dissimilar to the way it was for Fabinho and Wijnaldum at times as well. They would just sort of operate as a two at that base. Thiago and Fabinho did the same thing. But people always say 4-3-3. And it's interesting that the current manager in the summer, when he's asked about it, says, oh, no, I play three midfielders. It's still three, but it does work as a two. That's there. But I think what's different, basically, effectively there, you can just say, well, he's replaced Endo with Gravenberch. That's been what's gone on in terms of the structure. But I think what is different is clarity of roles in attack. So last season in the league, Jota gets as much time at left wing as he does at centre forward. This season, he's either played centre forward or he's played as a 10. That's where Jota's done his business, mostly at centre forward or as a 10. Gakpo last season, to John's point before, he's doing interviews post-match where he's trying to remind everyone he's a left winger. And this season, he's just been played solely as a left winger. He pops up in other areas at times, but he just solely does that. It's Diaz who moves around. So, the big difference is the manager's come in. He's got real clarity as to what he wants from Gakpo, real clarity what he wants from Nunez, absolute clarity on how he's building the team around Salah. And then within there as well, I think you can argue there's greater clarity in a bit of a way around Jota. And it's Diaz who maybe is the one he uses as a bit of a Swiss Army knife from time to time to get certain things. And I think that is the biggest difference. And I think that you're seeing the benefit of that more than anywhere else, in that I think what you are seeing is and it's important again to say there was, Liverpool scored 4 on New Year's Day last year against Newcastle. He scored 4 against Chelsea, 4 against Bournemouth, 4 against Brentford. Yeah. So it wasn't like they couldn't attack brilliantly. But I think that there's a greater sense of comfort in terms of what it is that they're doing, collective comfort. And I think that that's great to see. And within that, there's an unbelievable work ethic from everyone. And within that, the player who has the least demand on him is the one who's producing the greatest results in terms of output with goals and assists and just looking all round like the absolute man.
I do think, just going back to the point about what do we do if Salah dries up, I think it's forgotten that you used the phrase that we're building the team around Salah. It's a team built to get Salah goals. And it always has been, quite frankly, since Klopp realised that he was the man who was going to get in the most goals. So, it's a symbiotic thing. I mean, I keep referencing, when I talked to you recently, that Ian Graham book, but they talked about in their eternal discussions about you basically want a couple of players arriving. That's what your team wants to structure needs to be built around. A couple of the ball arriving in a certain space for 2 players, really. And well, in our case, it's very much Salah is the first of those 2. So that's not to denigrate him in any way whatsoever, because it's all on him. But quite often, we don't funnel the ball down to Salah and go on, now you beat 3 or 4, or you jink past 2 and hit the touchline and slide in. We ask Diaz to do that kind of dirty work. We ask Gakpo. Salah gets to bide his time a bit more, and that's why we score with Salah. And if Salah does get an injury, God forbid that happens, but I think we'll be okay. And not because any team wouldn't miss Mo Salah, because I think we'll find solutions.
Okay, going to look ahead to West Ham now, but first of all, I want to give a huge shout out to Green King Sports, who partner with us for the whole season for Midweek Extra. If you download the Green King Sports app, it will tell you where your nearest Green King Sports pub is. You can get 10% off drinks when there is live sport on the telly, which is a lot at the moment, certainly with the darts back on. I'm a bit cross with them for having 3 days off, the darts lads. I'm like, come on. Christmas Day, I'll let them have, but they should have been out working yesterday. Me and you were, in my opinion. But today they are back. Neil, who's your fancy?
I mean, it's all lined up to the semi-final between the two Lukes.
Yeah.
The whole thing, really. It feels as though that's the
Luke-off.
direction of the Luke-off, the big Luke-off.
Yeah.
Feels as though that's the whole direction of travel. And then I think whoever it is, I do feel a little bit like whoever it is going to come through the other half of the draw is signing up to get battered. Which they'll almost certainly not think that because they're professional sports people and they'll have the mentality, you never know, you turn up on a final.
Yeah.
But I do feel as though the Luke-off will define the entire thing.
But you know, whoever wins the Luke off might have took a lot out of them. They might be less Luke than they were by the time they've sort of come through
Luke,
that.
but don't touch.
Yeah.
I love that
Excellent.
guy.
Great joke.
Really good, everyone. And so if you are Michael Van Gerwen, for example, and you're in the other half and you've had a nice easy time, you know, you could be ready to.
And it's fair to say Michael Van Gerwen backs himself.
Well, yeah, 100%.
When it comes to it.
Yeah, I was going to say I feel sorry for Stephen Bunting, who somehow ended up. He'll have to beat both Lukes and then just to get to a final.
Yeah, that's just real unfair if you are on that side of the draw.
I know, you're like, come on.
The other one I like, by the way, he's actually throwing the darts tonight against Peter Wright. I like Peter Wright as well, but Jermaine Watamina, I saw him in the first round and then texted the big man, our darting expert, Paddy Fitzsimons, who said, no, this fella's serious, and he knocked one of the seeds out in the second round. So he's now in the third round and he's won a major over the course of the year, so keep your eye on Watamina.
Can we do a darts podcast? Because if Paddy Fitzsimon can host it, my Rafi will come on it. I think it's that generation they're properly getting into. Although he's younger than Paddy, but still, yeah.
And it's a huge one for the average height.
So yeah.
Those two
Tall lads
together.
like darts.
Yeah, there you go.
Gen Z.
Yeah.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Only available in XL and above.
Anyway, watching the darts in the pub's great fun. I did it last Saturday and it was really good. It goes off, and so why not find your nearest Green King Sport pub? Go check out the darts or the football or whatever it is you want to watch this weekend. Get 10% off drinks with that app, and yeah, thanks to them for partnering with us. So yeah, biggest game of the season, West Ham away.
I know, and I'm going. Very excited about it, John. I feel like I'm living in the smoke these days because God, it was only days ago that we were murdering Spurs.
Yeah.
I sort of vaguely followed yesterday what was happening in the West Ham game. I know they nick it late on, but
They got a lot of injuries. Yeah, a lot of injuries.
Have they got lads suspended through? I'm asking questions here rather than answering.
Yeah, they're missing 5.
Let's do that quickly and then come back to me.
Okay.
Who's out? so I can do a thorough analysis. Let's pretend I knew this anyway.
Fabianski's injured. Which
Souček's out.
Yeah,
that's important.
Souček's suspended.
Souček's suspended and Guido Rodriguez is suspended. Those two are suspended. Kilman got injured yesterday and Fabianski got injured
Who's somehow still in goal for West Ham.
Yeah, which is just ridiculous. I mean, I like Areola. I think he's a good keeper, so I don't think it makes that much difference. Soler, who's been really important to them, looking better at football recently, he went off at half-time, so the theory is that he'll be out as well, so he just gets the hook at half-time. Well, it must be an injury because the manager's used 3 of his subs then. And another one goes off. Well, he had a concussion sub, it's worth saying as well. So that was the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper's off because of concussion. So
he can't play.
He can't play. So the big thing to point out, ultimately, I've done a little. Do you want my predicted West Ham team, Rob? Because I've been preparing for the West Ham call.
Then you come back to me.
Excellent stuff.
No more than that, though.
But I know you already know it. I'm just telling you what you already know.
Start from the front of
So
Rob's been checking the weather, to be fair.
Yeah,
he can't be on top of everything.
It'll be Areola in goal, Wan-Bissaka at right back, Tadibo, and it won't be Kilman at centre half. It'll be Mavropanos at centre half. Kilman went off injured. Emerson then at left back. I think they'll have Paqueta and Alvarez in a 2. Bowen right wing. Kudus in the 10. Somerville left wing. And Fulkrug up front. It's actually a fine 11, that. For all the talk of it. That's a good 11. The point then is there's no subs. So they've got Gamere, who they brought in from Brazil, who's a 19-year-old, and they've got Danny Ingredients. And beyond that, there's no substitutions that they can make plausibly. The bench was ripped apart yesterday. So I think the thing to point out is that is a perfectly, really strong 11. Bowen looks like he's in good nick. Looks like he's enjoying his football massively. Club captain, all the hits. You know, you can't respect him enough. But I do think that as this one wears on, and also they won't be used to the intensity of the back-to-back games as well. I think it works for us.
It's a handful 11, I would say, because it's a 4-2-4, what you've described effectively there, because there's not many, and Paqueta's, you know, he's a very attacking player. There's not many midfielders going on, is there, in that lineup?
No.
So, but for last few years, West Ham have always had attacking gifts. Mikel Antonio's always given us a hard time, and obviously he won't be available to them. But this is sort of what I was referencing earlier when I said if this Liverpool side focuses, West Ham won't be a problem. We'll be able to take the game away from them, and it not a stroll, but it'll be something, a game we can win and win convincingly. But if we're not on it, and the close proximity of this game to the last game has an effect on us, then you never know. It might be one of those gets messy in the first half. They've got loads of attacking gifts, as Neil's has outlined. But what do they look like on 60? As Neil's outlined, are they blowing hard? And that's where we do have all manner of gifts, because our squad is quietly, touch wood, very fit at the moment, bar the two lads, and even the lads who are only just coming back are more in a groove. Jota's ready to start a game, I'd say. Chiesa's ready to do 20 or 30 minutes off the bench if we need him. Harvey Elliott's ready to start.
Barely saw Elliott, have we?
We've barely seen Elliott. So there's a lot of freshening up he can do. He very much rested Soboslai and Luis Diaz. So you'd think they are. Soboslai can't start, can he? So that looks a rick. He came on and got himself booked, which is a real pain in the arse. So I'm not quite sure what he does. Does Elliott maybe come in for Curtis Jones? I'm not sure. Diaz definitely comes in. Maybe he goes Diaz, Jota, Salah, and rests the other two. Something. I think he's got to make 2 or 3 changes for freshness' sake, and certainly he'll look to bring in people in the second half to change the game again.
Yeah, the Szoboszlai situation was annoying because he takes him out, I think, with half an eye on the West Ham game, and then suddenly sort of can't play on that, and so that is a little bit of a frustrating one, really. But apart from that, like Rob says, we are in rude health, really, and there's some good players like Elliott who aren't getting much of a look in at the moment because there is so much quality ahead of them.
Yeah, I think the bench last night was the strongest I've seen it in a long time for Liverpool. So they are in a really fortunate position. I agree with Rob, probably make a couple of changes. I'd like to see Harvey Elliott given a start, to be honest, because at the start of the season when people were criticising Szoboszlai and he wasn't quite at his best, I think there was a real sort of yearning for Elliott to be back and playing in that sort of number 10 role. And I think it'd be quite nice to see him given a little run out, although I wouldn't be surprised if he sticks with the same midfield. Gravenberch will have to be careful. I think he's one off for suspension as well.
Yeah, it's just going to happen eventually, isn't it? So you can't stress about it too much.
Yeah, I think the only thing with it being the United game, as poor as they are at the moment, you'd quite like him available for that.
It's the last one he can miss. He can get a suspension in.
So,
is that right?
Yeah, so if he survives West Ham, then he resets. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm chatting bollocks then. Yeah, you should be careful.
He can't. No, he can also get a suspension in the United game.
Can he?
Yeah,
it's
game 19. Because it's 19 games, it's not on the date. So if he got suspended for the United game, does he then miss the league game against Nottingham Forest?
I think yellows are
an FA Cup game.
No, yellows are competition specific.
So it would
accumulation of yellows is competition
specific. If he gets booked against West Ham, he misses United, and if he gets booked against United, he then misses Nottingham Forest. And you could have your own view on whether or not Manchester United are better than Nottingham Forest. The league table's very much of one opinion.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily think that will come into Slot's thinking too much. I think you probably play him and just hope that, you know, if he does get a suspension, then Liverpool are okay without him. But yeah, I think up front, I wouldn't be surprised to see Diaz come back in, Jota maybe. But that's the thing that, you know, Liverpool are really fortunate with at the moment, is that you don't really fear that, you know, anyone who comes in is going to be significantly worse than anyone who's dropping out. So
could be tempted by Tsimikas, couldn't he? Just to freshness.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Andy Robertson at the moment is just in a little bit of a rut where, you know, probably his demise is being exaggerated a little bit, but unfortunately he's at the scene of a lot of crimes and it's not.
I thought he did all right last night. I've seen him take a bit of criticism for the goal, which I just don't agree with. I think Ayew does brilliant.
Yeah.
And secondly,
I guess his deflection as well.
Yeah, but he does brilliant in terms of the turn and to sort of he controls it and barges Robertson out the way in one move, which takes some doing, and then to turn it, like you say, Rob, without the deflection, it probably, you know, the keeper probably saves it, and then we're not talking about it anyway. But I also think he's over there, you know, trying to sort it out. We're the centre halves type thing.
I think it was more to do with...
It was one of those, one, wasn't it? Where's everybody else for this one, if you don't mind?
Yeah, well, Gravenberch's playing right back. So Gravenberch's trying to stop the cross. Elliott's trying to marking the centre forward. And I'm not Elliott, saying Robertson. I'm a bit like, come on, what's happened to everyone else?
But I think he's sort of in that sort of phase at the moment where sort of everything that he does is being sort of misconstrued as some major error. And I almost think for his sake, you know, put Tsimikas in, give him a little rest. And, you know, if Tsimikas has a bad game, then I'm sure it'll get to half time and people will be crying for Robertson to come on. So yeah, I wouldn't be averse to doing that.
It's probably this and Arsenal away are probably the two games where I'd make a quite passionate argument. You play Gomez at left back, but that's only if Konaté's fit. I think you keep Gomez where he is, but I think Bowen and Saka are two really I'm not saying that there aren't other really good right-sided players in the league, but they're the two who most sort of remind me of that Liverpool style of wide player who you get the impression could also go and do some stuff at centre forward or at number 10. In Saka's case, a bit more number 10. At Bowen, you've literally watched him play at centre forward, and I feel for that sort of player, I would on that side, I would like Gomez to be available, but I would not, and the manager will not move Gomez and disrupt the back four. And disrupt that, because what we talked about earlier on with he will play Gravenberch and McAllister, he will play Gomez and Van Dijk, he will play Alisson. That will be the five that make up that bedrock on which everything else is built. But I do have a little fancy that it is, I think Bowen is just really good. And I think he's really good at being Jared Bowen. I don't think he's got any questions about what it is he does and what it is he does well.
I think if you're targeting Liverpool, then you've watched the videos. The goal we've conceded, I think, to my mind, my memories, that's the expression, most this season is one where teams have targeted Robertson at the back post. We can see that goal against Fulham, against Brighton. We do one against Spurs last week. Starts with it's not his fault, by the way. Not mainly, these aren't Andy Robertson's fault. The fact that he's 5'8" or something like that, not 6'2". But teams are targeting that, and I don't quite know why it feels like we suddenly become much more vulnerable. Maybe there are a few times last season I'm not remembering. But
Bowen scores that pretty much that goal at West Ham last year.
Maybe it's a ball everyone who's got a small fullback's vulnerable to, and I've just not overthought about it. But this season in particular, I've noticed because we haven't conceded that many until recently, that's where we're conceding at that post.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a long period there was just almost the idea you'd look at opposition sides and they'd never attack Van Dijk. And I think in the end, off the back of, because Van Dijk's that side, but I think off the back of having come up against Liverpool a lot over an extended period of time, people just sort of realised, well, it's a bit ridiculous that you've got to try somewhere and you've got to, you've got to have variance. So I think that's part of the reason why that's just dropped in a little bit more and people have got a teeny little bit of joy about it. It's also worth saying, whilst I said before, these sitters are two, Gravenberch does sit deeper than McAllister. Gravenberch does pull to the right that little bit more as well. So that is an aspect of that. McAllister's a little bit more diminutive, not quite as leggy as Gravenberch as well over on that side. So then you've got him and Robertson in tandem together pretty close. But I just don't. The perfect defence doesn't exist.
No.
Everyone, and also over a period of time, sides do find a little bit of a weakness. As I say, when you come up against Arsenal, especially away, and when you come up against these, you can make a really strong argument, and it's even just back to the old Benitez theory of it's no bad thing for the left back to have a stronger foot be on the inside, because both Bowen and Saka's stronger foot is on the inside. So there's worse things to do. But the problem here is with Konaté's absence, I just don't think you can. You want to you don't want to disrupt two things. And then my concern with Tsimikas, whether it will be against Saka or against Bowen, it's just pace. I think he does lack pace on the turn, recovery to come back, and then I think that also throws in doubt when he's trying to be front-footed as well. I think that Dan throws that in. So I think that the manager will end up going with Robertson in this one. I think if he was going to rest Robertson in this run, I think it may well have been the game against Leicester. And it may well be one where it's Tsimikas on 60 rather than a little bit later. It's the idea of, right, I'll just basically, you pour all your energy in for an hour. We bring the other lad on, he puts all his energy in for an hour. And we go
that's
from there.
likeliest, yeah. Tsimikas on 60.
Would it be big, Rob? I know that sounds obvious, but we dropped points there last year. And so the idea of improving on what you did last year, there's only so many chances you can do that because we actually end up with a decent point total. But that was one. It felt a bit of a messy game last season. It's the one where Salah ends up having a row with Jurgen on the side and things like that. I think we're up in the game and end up drawing it. We go down at first and then
we turn it around really well and then just sloppy.
And then sort of throw it away. And also it'll be one where, Arsenal fans or Chelsea fans or whoever it is who thinks they're in a title race will be looking at it and thinking there's a potential there. And so if we can go there and win, for all those reasons, it feel really big to me.
Yeah, it's a difficult game to gauge. If you do win it, is it a big win? I mean, I watched Arsenal go there a few weeks ago and did they score 4 in the first half? Or 5? Yeah, 4 in the first half. But then West Ham went up the other end and scored 2, and it suddenly looks a bit interesting. they're a very, very strange team. As I said, if you knew nothing about their season and you would drop from space, but you knew a bit about individual footballers, as the team Neil suggested there, you go, it's got to be at least a sort of upper mid-table team. It's got to be a 7th, 8th place team. You go on paper, that team's possibly better than a huge amount of teams that are ahead of them in the league. I'd probably have that crop of players ahead of maybe Brighton's or Bournemouth's or maybe Forest's even. I don't know. Maybe I'm going a bit mad here, but it's a decent crop of players. So it's hard to gauge how big a win it'll be, other than they're all massive at this stage, and they're all massive because this is a phase of the season, I think, where I think a few of us have said for a while that for Liverpool to win this, especially as it's a young team still, it needs to sort of pull away. I think the vibe is we need to pull away. We need to invoke the spirit of 1920, where everyone is left in our wake. That we don't want to get hauled back in and then have to regroup and go and ebb and flow. And maybe a bit more experience that a team like Arsenal had could see us. So that's why at this stage I feel this game, Man U, and then you look at the January. If we can just keep ticking over and winning those, and let's regroup at the end of Jan, early Feb, and say we've still got this kind of lead. Then maybe even bigger. Then I think we can go, tell you what, this is ours to lose now, properly.
It's huge.
Yeah, huge. I completely agree with Rob. I think the last thing Liverpool want to do is give Arsenal in particular a sniff going into January, because Liverpool have got some tricky games. They can play, what is it? Are they playing 8 games in January? Might be more.
No, I think it'll be 8, yeah, given now.
How many in the league? There are not many.
It's 4 in the league.
It's 4, right.
So they've got a busy old schedule. You imagine injuries will hit at some point in that month, potentially. So they don't want to go into that having dropped needless points, especially against teams who they should be beating. I think West Ham, as much as they've caused Liverpool a lot of problems over the years at their place, I think Liverpool, at the moment, it's hard to look past them finding a way to get something. But it will be a tough game. It feels like a place that Liverpool always struggle at, even when they win it. I can't remember too many sort of really convincing wins that Liverpool have had there over the last few years. So massive, yeah, really, really big game. And then the nice thing is then they've got a week to sort of rest up ahead of United, which will hopefully allow for Konate and Conor Bradley maybe to be back in the fold.
Of course it's huge. I feel as though the league is potentially won in the next 4 away games. They're all games that Liverpool will kick off favourites, but they're all games that you can see how the opposition can make life difficult. So it's West Ham, then it's Forest, then it's Brentford, and then it's Bournemouth, and they're the next 4.
You watch Forest Spurs?
Yeah,
I thought it was really interesting how Forest basically set up as the away team.
Yeah,
and they'll do that times 2 against us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it'll be very similar to the game at Anfield.
That's what I think as well. And I think you can sort of look at the split so far. Liverpool dropped points in 2 games at home and 2 games away, but in this league, I think there's a couple of aspects. I think the other thing to point out is how the bottom 10 is currently organised. Liverpool have won every game they played against a bottom 10 team this season. That's one of the ways you win the league, is you get as close to 60 points from that as humanly possible. But I think the other thing is, I think those difficult away games in this run, I'm as confident as it's plausible to be, whilst acknowledging that a poor United side has got a point at Anfield in the relatively recent history. Mm-hmm. I'm as confident as it's possible to be about Liverpool at home against Manchester United. To me, it's now not too dissimilar to when Everton come to Anfield. The most I'm expecting from them is some high level spoiling, and I think that Liverpool can come on the other side of that quite comfortably. These away games are the business part of this. And I think if Liverpool can go to London in this one and have the same mentality from the first whistle as they did the last time they went to London, and it's worth saying, everyone went at the Tottenham game now because it went so well. Everyone forgets everyone felt they've got a bit to prove, a little bit to prove here. I think if they go in with the same thing and show that they've got a bit to prove, and I think it will help that. I think West Ham have to play footballers, and therefore they have to play football. They can't cover up. I don't think West Ham, given the who is available and who isn't, the covering up is not an option for them. If they try and do that, it'll be counterproductive. So if Liverpool can have literally the same mentality as the one they had against Tottenham and say, all right, you want to play a bit, watch us, watch this, then I think it can, they can prevail. But I think I don't disagree. Where I slightly disagree with Rob is I feel as though Liverpool at some point could find themselves being at least hauled in a little bit. But I do agree with Rob in that I think that if they put a run together now, given Arsenal's major injury issue, and given how difficult Arsenal's January is, and given the fact that Chelsea have just gone out of the way to show a good level of mortality, and also that opposition sides look like they might have just got a little bit of a grip of Chelsea, a tiny little bit, got a bit of an eye on them and gone, okay, so we stop the ball getting to him in particular, and it gets harder. I think Liverpool could end up with a really strong gap after the game against Bournemouth if they put a sprint together now, and part of that is winning on Sunday.
Listen, loads more on the Anfield Wrap app looking ahead to Sunday's game. Thanks for saying it was Sunday, Neil. Who knows what day it is, but when Neil's across of it, and then that is good of him.
Is it on Sunday? Yeah.
Sunday, yeah.
I better remember because I'm going.
Exactly, yeah.
It could go wrong.
Just set off now, just to be sure.
I like that did a Rob outside the ground on Saturday, aggrieved. Just let me in now, he says. We'll make a day of it.
I've been to a ground on the wrong day. Yeah, Celtic Park. Basically, we had a weekend in Glasgow, and I managed to persuade Laura somehow, let's go and watch Celtic, and then they got knocked out of Europe. So they went into a lesser European competition. So anyway, so they played Thursday. So it got shifted to the Sunday like 8 days before. And I'm obviously not across the details. And so, when you're in a taxi, like, it's awfully quiet. I thought there'd be more people. Yeah, got to the ground.
Wow.
Yeah.
And as you got out of the taxi, is that the moment the penny dropped?
Pretty much, yeah.
Did you manage to go the next day?
No, because we were moving on, and I mean, my wife's a wonderful woman, but she's not, she's not delaying the rest of her holiday to hang on for Celtic v Partick Thistle. We had a nice Sunday planned, climbing a hill or something, and she was up for that. And so yeah, don't do that. It's Sunday, everyone. But yeah, loads looking forward to the game on the Anfield Wrap app. So really good time to subscribe. We'll have pre-match warm-up, which has been recorded later. There is the Friday show as well, looking ahead to all the Premier League games, and obviously straight after the game on Sunday, we think the best post-match reaction you'll find anywhere, hopefully after another big Liverpool win. So why not subscribe? Why not join us for what's looking like it's going to be a really exciting and hopefully trophy-laden season. But thanks a lot to Rob, to Neil, to Beth for coming in, for Ash for producing as well, and for you guys up the Reds.